Everybody on? It's just now 11.
Sure. I have 11:02 on mine, but we can give a couple more moments to allow people to come in. I don't think I finished my housekeeping notes, though. There's a question mark, too. So if you feel more comfortable clicking on the question mark, indicating your question manually, you just go ahead and text your question in, and we'll read your question at the next break in slides. Unless, Carrie, do you think that we should save questions till the end? What would you be more comfortable with?
Yeah, do we know yet how many people are on the call, Adrian?
Yes, we do.
Because that would kind of determine how, if we want to keep the questions to the end. If it's a real small group, then we can just do a,
We have just under 10. We have just under 10 on the line.
Okay, perfect.
So do you want to go ahead and...
Let's just hold them to the end then.
Okay.
That way we don't have a lot of people jumping in.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Well, we'll just go ahead and get started now then, since it's about 11:03, and it's probably going to take me a full 30 minutes to go through all the slides. As Adrian mentioned, my name's Carrie Toomey. I'm with Avalara, and today we just want to take some time to go over the best practices for exemption certificates and reducing your audit risk. Let me make sure my phone is off. And I'm not able to switch my slides.
There always seems to be some technical difficulties in making it more exciting for everybody.
Yes, we were just going through this, and we did a practice round, and so now I'm going to have to play button pushing to see what's going to make my slides go through. Okay, there we go. Okay, so should be moving through now. Yep. So now we'll just go over some housekeeping. Adrian kind of mentioned some, and then I said it'll be about 30 minutes. Your lines are muted, and you can toggle between, the full screen mode and control panel view by using the toolbar, and then at the end we'll take some questions. So just for the agenda today, let's start off with, why bother? What is exemption certificate management, and why do I need to collect them? It's a document that legally you're supposed to collect if one of your customers is claiming that they are exempt from collecting or from paying sales tax. And the only way that this protects you really is if you've got this paperwork on file. So you're probably joining us today because you're in that in that percentage where your sales are either all exempt or part of them are exempt, and so you're struggling or you're not sure of the process that you need to be going through to make it optimal for your business, and essentially customer service can be affected, and your revenue can be affected if those customers aren't happy. So some of the experience that your customers may be feeling today is you can't locate the certificate. You're going back and forth trying to find where the certificate is, when they sent it in to you, if they had the right fax number, if they had the right form. Then you go through, well, let's see if it's expired or not. Meanwhile, all your orders are being put on hold, giving them your company losing revenue at the time when these orders are on hold, and also giving them, the customer, a bad experience because they're wondering why they just want to spend some money with you. They just really want to buy your product, and why are we going back and forth with this? So, the suboptimal exempt sales process is, the sales and credits do not have, either one have a sales tax certificate on file or the expertise around that. Your salespeople don't necessarily know that they've got to collect a exemption certificate. They as well just want to close the deal. So, you tend to see invoices coming through with manager discounts on that because they're discounting the sales tax completely because they're not quite sure of an exemption cert on file, and meanwhile your P&L is hurt. So, the typical exemption management experience, like I said, I've gone through it. It's burdensome and it's audit risk prone. The big thing that auditors are looking at now, as some of you are probably aware, is that exemption certificate process. whether you've even got one in place. You know, they show up to your door, they immediately, the first question we've heard from our customers say, you know, they ask, well, let me see where, you know, how are you collecting exemption certificates? And then you kind of present them with this shoebox. And you're not quite sure, you know, if they're correct or not. So then they start running reports, and then they find billing errors due to inaccurate, incomplete data, or you don't have any reports even showing that you've collected any certificates, and here you've not charged sales tax. So, you know, it's a real big audit risk for our customers, and that's why they, you know, join Avalara and have us manage that process for them. The financial burden, as I talked about before, you know, there's the sales and use tax audits, and most of the audits for small and mid-sized businesses that we found average around $30,000 in fines and penalties, and most of those fines and penalties come from that exemption certificate process and the lack thereof. So again, once you've you know, you've got a process in place, it accelerates your revenue and removes, you know, removes those holds on orders and reduces the tax-only credits, so you're not going back and forth and taxing these invoices, etc. So some of the challenges that I mentioned, you know, what are the areas you feel are key to managing exemption certificates? We actually had a Credit Research Foundation pulled some statistics together, and I believe they had about 172 people or so do a survey for them, and the biggest challenge around exemption certificates is the collection process, and then managing whether they're expired or not. You know, it's about 10 years ago, states were going to the route where they weren't having them expire, but now with the debts and deficits that states are going through, more and more states are having their exemption certificates expire, you know, on a yearly basis even. So just managing that around it can be cumbersome and difficult. So let's talk about that collection process. So who's responsible for collecting the exemption certificates? Again, the Credit Research Foundation ran a survey, and within most organizations, the credit department is responsible. But look at these other departments. You know, you've got other, which who knows what that could be. You know, it could be the front desk lady or man. You know, you've got your customer service department, sales teams. All of these people have obviously within different companies touch the exemption certificate. Now whether they know they're collecting when it is right or not, or the process in place, or maybe it's in the back seat of their car if it's a you know, remote salesperson and it's not being stored at the office, you know, you just never know. So you know, most people are the credit department, and that's where you're touching your customers, and that's the customer experience. So, you know, having an exemption certificate process in place would limit that frustration and stress with your customers and the credit department. Because say you need to collect more on an invoice because you didn't charge them enough because you didn't have the exemption certificate on file. So that moves to, you know, say collections. They're calling them saying, hey, wait, I already paid this. Well, you know, you didn't because it wasn't accurate. So having a management process in place is really important, not only for revenue for your company, but also for that customer experience again. And you can request these exemption certificates, as many of you know, individually or in bulk. You know, individual requests are usually around if you've got new customers or new shipping locations. But a lot of companies do a large, you know, collection campaign, and they do that when maybe something's changed within their own business. They've got a new location, or they've been acquired by a company. Their legal name has changed, and so, you know, there's other ways of collecting exemption certificates from all your clients. Again, if you've got something internal that has changed with your company, it's also important then to get a new exemption cert on file. So within that large collection campaign, you know, you've got your customers, who and where they're at. You've got to determine that, as well as, you know, you can do the communication via phone, letter mass, fax blast, email. But then again, how do you handle those undeliverables? Essentially, there's going to be return mail, you know, faxes that don't go through, or even bounced emails. So who's managing that process, and to know when that happens and tracking those responses? Because essentially, if you are in an audit the auditor wants to know that you've at least attempted to get an exemption certificate. So where's that audit trail if you're doing that all manually? And so again, here's the methodologies of collection. You know, most people use a manual process, mail merging, spreadsheets. You know, they fax things back and forth. It could be, you know, office documents or federal license numbers, and it's not the actual exemption certificate, but no one's quite sure what is the thing that, you know, what's the paperwork they're supposed to be collecting. So, you know, that's a lot of the challenges within the manual process. But then you also have some companies do use a technology or web-based software like Avalara, our product AvaCerts, which really improves the whole process and you know, reduces the staffing requirements because, again, it's all automated. Exemption certificates are sent via email. If there's bounce backs, it's tracked for you. You know, that way you've got an audit trail going, you know, so you can show that auditor, hey, I might not have this exemption certificate on file for Walmart because Walmart's not going to give you one. However, you've at least covered yourself because you've got the audit trail for that. And then, you know, some people outsource the issue, and you know, what I always say, you can outsource and spend the money, but if you've got a real big hot mess, you're just going to have a more expensive hot mess when you outsource it because they're not going to be able to fix it for you unless you've actually got the process in place. So let's talk about validation with exemption certificates. Again, the same company did a survey, and you know, and basically they asked, so, you know, how do you know if what you've got on file is valid? If that exemption certificate is, how do you determine whether it's valid or not? You know, 81% said because it's fully completed. I'm not going to accept anything unless it's fully completed. Or if it's got a sales tax ID, you know, that tells me. What I say to that as well is, how do you know it's a state sales tax ID? If you've just got, you know, a clerk or someone that you've hired temporarily to just run this process for you, do they know what a state sales tax ID is versus a federal income tax ID? You know, so these are just some of the validation criteria that was pulled that you might fit into one of these categories. And so what constitutes a valid certificate based off that? You know, the minimum legal requirements that an auditor is going to look at is the name of the buyer and the seller and the buyer's permit number. The description, which is that good faith of what, you know, of the property that's being purchased so that they can decide if it falls under that exempt certificate, and nature of the business, signature, and date. Additional considerations, you know, again, the good faith, the familiarity with the exemptions available in the Nexus states. So basically, some people might only be exempt from certain products of sales tax in certain states. So how are you managing that? And then again, is it the correct form? Is it completely filled out? You know, and if the customer name actually matches the customer account or that sales tax ID. So, you know, this is all part of the process, that once you've even established the process, how do you know that it's actually accurate and correct? And Avalara's got some validity checklists that are available and white papers around this to help with your knowledge with exemption certificates and in whether you're collecting the correct thing. But then again, there's maintenance as well. You know, when you're storing, I talked a little bit about the shoebox. You know, the auditor walks up and wants to see your process, and you just give them a shoebox or open the filing cabinet drawer. So how are you storing these exemption certificates? You know, best practice is to centralize it in a central located, you know, whether it be a hosted solution or even just, you know, organized in a filing cabinet. You know, that's better than decentralized. I mentioned a salesperson that might have an exemption certificate in their car. I mean, how are you managing where these are at? You know, are they in binders? Are they in a dedicated filing cabinet? Or are they electronic? I mean, the best practice is to use you know, a tax-specific management system like AvaCerts, where we're hosting that for you. It's easily accessible by anybody that you would want, you know, to have access to that, and you've got your workflow and audit protection built in. So how are you capturing the data? You know, at a minimum, You need that customer name and account number and the state ID, as I said. But as well as that, you also need an issue date, an expiration date. These do expire. And the actual form name and exemption type. Again, products differ whether they're exempt by state to state and where that customer falls. So they, just because a customer is exempt in buying some sort of widget, they might not be exempt in the other widget A, or widget A versus widget B. It's not an umbrella. There's usually state or your customers are exempt from certain products, not across the board, unless they're like a school or nonprofit. So when you receive these updated certificates, another good practice is to keep the older ones for the historical data, because you want that backup. So this is, again, if you're not using an automated process, this is some things that you are probably dealing with, or maybe not even dealing with, that you're considering, and you need to get in order for that process for audit protection. So ongoing maintenance, again, may expire 1 to 10 years depending on the state. Do you have a method to check for the existing certificate on file? I mean, how are you doing that? Are you asking the person constantly for a new exemption certificate because you don't know where that other one is? And again, best practice is to reach those customers 1 to 3 years. Standard is about 3 years to reach out to them to just get a new form. Make sure there's nothing that's changed with their business, or if your company has changed, and create a new nexus and that sort of thing. Reach out to those customers, get an exemption certificate on file. That's the best practice. So other considerations, if you're not collecting exemption certificates, it's got a big impact on your billing process as well, because you're going back and forth with the customer, giving credits, and that customer, the feel of the customer working with you, is kind of like, well, gosh, they can't even get, I just want to purchase something. They can't even get this straight. How are they going to actually implement my, my product or whatever the service you're buying? So, it's important to track which customers have provided the exemption certificates on a state and jurisdictional level. A lot of states are, home ruled states, or have different jurisdictions that are required for exemption certificates as well, city and county level. Your billing system should revert exempt flags upon expiration. Unless, so basically what that is saying is if you're in your ERP and, something should be flagged to tell you, hey, I'm going to start charging sales tax because there's not a valid exemption certificate on file. If you're doing a manual process, that's not going to happen unless you've got somebody monitoring that constantly. When you go to an automated process, that happens automatically. And sales tax will be charged, or it's going to alert you that you need to collect an exemption certificate. So again, best practice is always charge tax unless you've got a valid exemption certificate on hand. So let's talk about, again, customer service. You've charged tax even though the customer submitted a certificate. They pay the invoice. The accounting has to reconcile the discrepancy. No one notices your short pay. So, again, that hits your bottom line. Customer doesn't pay the invoice in full until it's resolved, so therefore it goes to credit. And that's where I showed you earlier on the research, a lot of companies are just letting their credit departments handle it. So that's not a good experience for customers. And then again, the customer wants a refund. And so, you do not tax even though there's no certificate submitted. So basically, you'll be questioned in an audit. So then you'll have to go back and forth through the customer even at that point. So really, the most important thing to remember is just to get a process in place. And Avalara's got white papers around this as well. In regards to a process and the best practices. So again, the benefits of an exemption management process, you've got risk mitigation and audits. I think we've kind of beat that one over. We've talked a lot about audits. It's efficient. if you've got an exemption process in place, you've got your use of your internal resources is more efficient. You don't have people on the phone, again, back and forth calling for exemption certificates. You can have one person manage it, really. If you've got a process in place and you've got an automated tool, you don't need several people doing this. You can have one person just managing or monitoring even, not spending a lot of time just going through the software. And again, you've got improved customer relationships. So let's talk about automation and the tools that Avalara can offer. We've got a product called AvaTax Certs, which actually looks up, it'll talk to your ERP, it integrates with your ERP and basically helps look up excuse me, the certificate on file. Or if it's a new customer, it automatically sends the request, hey, we need a certificate on file or we're going to charge you tax. And then from there, it's an electronic process. Oops. Let's see. Oh, I guess we're not, thought we were going to go through. I'll say it in this slide a little bit more. Then the next one is, a collection wizard. The wizard is going to actually go through with your customer, have them answer a couple questions. That's going to generate the correct form, and then the wizard was actually there to, answer any questions as they fill out that form correctly. They're going to sign that form with their mouse, send it back to you via email. It's going to be stored for you, and you can retrieve that at any time and look anything up. You can also then set reminders to reach out to that customer to get another exemption certificate, say in 3 years, or if it expires in 1 year, it'll do that for you as well. So again, it's AvaCerts, it's easy as 1, 2, 3. You send an email, the customer fills it out, and signs it and then sends it back to you. It's automatically stored. It's a hosted solution, accessible from anywhere, secure data. We don't care about the information on the form. We're not looking at that. We're just hosting that information for you, that form. And then, you can get rid of those filing cabinets and shoe boxes and maybe free up an office for someone. Oops. So the benefits, again, we're automating the process. That manual process goes away. Even if you don't have a manual process in place, you have zero process in place, this is going to make it much easier to get a process in place. You're eliminating, the headache of customer service, as well as the billing headache of credits. It's easy to bulk mail merge all of your existing certificates that you have into our system, and as a go forward basis, we can be adding new ones as well right from the ERP. So again, automate certs collection, eliminates the lost certs, it eliminates audit exposure. Again, you've given yourself an audit trail. Enhances that customer service, that's a key one, and integrates with pretty much all of the ERPs as out-of-a-box solution. No need for IT involvement. Literally, it's a plug-and-play solution, and it fits any size business. So whether you're a small, company only managing 50 exemption certificates up to 50,000 exemption certificates, our software can handle that for you. So here's some just screenshots. The next few slides are just screenshots on the actual product itself and the experience you will have as well as your customer has. So this is just showing how easy it is. It's very wizard friendly and window based. You literally click on to make a bulk request or look up a customer reference ID. You can actually, we've talked about email, but you can actually mail and fax as well, so it would actually generate a hard copy for you that you could then fax or mail out. And then again, all of this is being stored and all of the steps that you're taking, and I'll show you that is being tracked. So here's an example of an email. You can customize the wording, but it shows you the link to click on, and it's all customized with a tracking ID, and that's how we're tracking when they're opening an email, when they're filling it out, when they're submitting it to you. And here's a slide for that, where it's showing you the request manager, where you can see each date and time that a request was generated, when they opened it, when they filled it out, and signed it back. And here's an example of if you're searching for certificates, and if you're trying to manage the existing ones you have, so okay, I've got Nexus in Arizona, Colorado, Florida. Okay, well, Florida expires. So for every Florida customer, I'm going to put in an expiration date to automatically remind me to go and ask for a new exemption certificate. And this kind of shows how you set that up. And again, here's all of the tracking and for your customers. And when you've got exemption certificates on form, if they've got PDF, if they filled it out, if they've got a PDF version on file, and if they actually signed it and sent it back. And so all of this is here for you, easy to read. This is what you'd pull up to, if the auditor came knocking on the door, you say, yep, here you go, let me pull a report for you. It's as easy as that. Again, this is how you're collecting these exemption certificates. You're uploading them, and it gives you the step-by-step instructions. We can also help you with that as well. A lot of our customers that sign on with us might have those shoe boxes again full, and they just don't have the time to go through and upload all of these individually. We can help with that as well. So again, how it works, this is what they're going to see on the buyer's going to see, or your customer. You're going to gather their information. Again, it's form specific, and then they're going to click on to generate and submit that actual certificate for you. And this is kind of the information you'll see when you pull up. When they're filling it out, they'll go in, they'll put their name, their address, who the signer is, and their job title. And then here's that description, that good faith, what they're buying. And then they're answering a couple more questions. So this is all generated from that email. They clicked on the link. And so here's, again, we're asking for good faith, answer the question, and then we're going to continue with the right form. And then here is where they actually sign this with their mouse. And, they would just go ahead and sign their name. I'm writing Carrie. You can't tell because it's not printing, but that's the experience that they would have. And then literally they are submitting that to you directly. So with that, I can open the lines up for any questions. There's the link to a live demo, or you can call, email any of our CDMs, and I'll show you that email address here. Oh, no, one more slide. Anyways, back to the email. You can go online to our website. We've got lots and lots of product demos, ERP specific as well, and you can pull up a live demo or schedule that with your salesperson. So again, Avalara offers an end-to-end compliance. So we talked about this middle compliance, or this middle product, Certs. But, really to be fully compliant, you need to have the AvaTax calc piece. This talks to your ERP. This calculates the correct tax based on rooftop level jurisdiction, so actual address level jurisdiction, not zip code. We also take into account the taxability of the products you're selling and the sourcing rules from which you're selling into or shipping from, and give you reports from there that you can file returns on. Or again, this last piece is we can file them for you. The AvaTax return product, we're putting liability worksheets together based off of the information from AvaTax Calc, from AvaTax Certs, pulling the correct reports together, preparing those returns for you, literally filing and remitting payment on your behalf, and archiving and managing those notices. So again, just like you would outsource something like payroll, having the AvaTax product line really gives you a full outsourced compliance or process flow for your sales tax needs. So with that, Adrienne, we can open up for any questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your time. I think I just got about 30 minutes.
You did a great job. You're right there on the button. I do have a poll while everybody is thinking of questions to ask. I'd like to launch real quick. Are you interested in learning more about Avalara? And if you could just take a moment to take this poll, that would be fantastic. And I'm not seeing any questions as of yet.
Well, that's not a good sign. Or maybe I just covered everything so well that I just answered everyone's question.
You're just thorough.
Yes.
So, Carrie, how long has Avalara been in business, and can you tell us a little bit about the exciting things happening over there? I know that you've just had phenomenal growth over the years, and
We have. We've been in business for about 9 years now, and we've got wonderful partnership relationships. We've got connectors, that AvaTax Calc connector, like I said, that talks to about 200 different ERP, point-of-sale systems, e-commerce solutions, and custom solutions. So, we started as a technology company 9 years ago, and it's just really grown, and our only focus is sales tax. And again, we provide that end-to-end solution as well as professional services. So really it's a one-stop shop, and it's just the growth of the company is phenomenal. I mean, every day we're just growing every year larger and larger. We've got like 10,000 customers right now. So we started 9 years ago with 4 people, and now we've got about 400 employees. So we're located in Bainbridge Island, Washington.
And
little city.
That's a beautiful little city. Sometimes it gets a little chilly though, but that's the only thing.
Yeah, well, I am in Phoenix, so I don't have to deal with that. I'm remote.
I love going there in the summer, though. Can't beat that.
Oh, you can't. That's true.
So I do have a question. I have, if the bill to address is out of state, but your ship to is in your state, shall we ask to fill out a resale certificate form?
Best practice, I would say yes. I'm not necessarily the expert to answer that question, but I would say best practice is yes. You always want to have that certificate on file for resale as well.
All right. Well, and then we have one more question here. How much, basically, price based on number of customers, or how?
Gotcha. So I kind of mentioned, we can help any range of size of company, whether you're dealing with 50 certificates or 50,000. So it's all priced based on usage. So it's the number of certificates we're managing for you. So that said, if all of your customers are exempt, maybe you're just a distributor, then yes, it'd be all of your customers, and then you fall into off that usage, you fall into different tiers or bucket levels, kind of like a cell phone plan. So you've got up to a certain amount of certificates, and this is the lump, this is the subscription you're signing up for that year. If it grows the next year, well, then you can move up to the next tier. So, but you're always just paying for what you sign up for, that usage amount. And the cost is minimal. I mean, it starts literally at $275 a year for that smallest bucket. If you want some, just hard numbers, then goes up from there. Any other questions, Adrian?
I had muted my.
Did I lose my internet connection?
I had muted myself. I do that on occasion. In order to provide an accurate cost, you probably have to really dig down into the requirements of the particular customer.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. It's best to have a conversation offline, but again, it's all usage-based. It's not just, say we're going to charge you this amount when you only have 50 exemption certificates you're managing. It's not one set fee. It's all based off of where you fall, where your data falls.
And with that, we have no further questions. I would like to share the results in case somebody thinks of a question in between. I'm going to share the results of our poll real quick. And we have 40% of you interested in learning more, and 60% would decline for now. And thank you so much, Carrie. Is there anything else that you had to close with?
I really, again, we just stressed over this webinar, even if you don't want to sign up with a automated service, it's just real important to just get that process in place. That's key, whether it be manual, automated, outsourced. It's just real key to keep those exemption certificates up to date and accessible in the event that you are audited, because that's usually the first place they go. So.
And that's never a comfortable
In
situation.
closing, let's close it with you're at risk for an audit if you don't get a process in place.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie, and thank you everyone else for spending some time with us today. And we'd love to hear from you if you had any further questions. This is recorded, and we'll send this out to the audience after we get the video converted.
Great. Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
All right, you too, Carrie. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.